Romance of Sui and Tang Dynasties, Chapter 73.
Okay, imagine for a second that you are the most powerful person in the world. And I don't mean, CEO of a tech company, powerful.
Or even president of a superpower, powerful.
No, I mean absolute, unquestioned ruler of an empire, powerful. Your word is law. Now, look out the window. It's late autumn. The trees are bare, the sky is gray, the wind's got that bite to it.
Yeah, everything feels a bit dormant, a bit dead.
Exactly. So here's the question. Is your power great enough to just order spring to come early? Could you write a memo to Mother Nature and expect her to follow it?
It sounds like a thought experiment, right? But today we're looking at a historical figure who didn't see it as a thought experiment. For her, it was a legitimate policy challenge.
It's history turned up to 11. We've got slapstick violence between government officials, and as we're going to see, massive political decisions being made based on who has a crush on who.
It captures how the culture remembered these figures, especially Empress Wu Zetian, and in this chapter, she is at the absolute peak of her power.
So let's set the scene. It's late autumn, maybe early winter. Empress Wu is on the throne, the only female emperor in Chinese history. She's in the Imperial garden with her nephew Wu Sanxi. And the move seems a little bleak.
It is. Wu Sanxi looks around and says something like, the weather's nice, but the garden looks sad. The trees are bare, leaves are falling. It just doesn't have the energy of spring.
And most rulers would just say, yeah, well, it's winter. Bummer. But Wu Zetian, she turns to him and says, that's not hard. I can make flowers bloom whenever I want.
It's the ultimate flex, and there's a reason for it. She's planning this big banquet for the next day to celebrate her daughter's wedding. She wants the garden to be perfect. She wants, and this is a quote, 10,000 flowers to bloom overnight.
And Wu Sanxi, who's usually this total yes man, he actually pushes back. He becomes the voice of reality.
He basically says, look, we can build walls, we can win wars, but the seasons, that's God's territory. You can't just reschedule spring for a party.
He's so sure she's delusional, he bets her 3 large cups of wine that she can't pull it off.
He thinks it's a safe bet.
Which leads to this incredible moment. Wu Zetian doesn't just wish for it. She treats the spirit world like a government department that's behind schedule. She drafts an official imperial edict to the flower goddess.
I just love that detail. She writes a memo to the gods, and the poem itself is fascinating. It goes, tomorrow I visit the upper garden, report quickly to spring. Flowers must bloom overnight. Do not wait for the morning wind to blow.
Do not wait for the morning wind. That line, it's so aggressive.
It is. In classical Chinese thought, the wind is the messenger of the seasons. The east wind brings spring. So by saying do not wait, she's explicitly bypassing the natural order. She's saying her imperial will is more important than the laws of nature.
But she doesn't just leave the note on a tree and hope. She calls in a specialist, this guy named Qin Shuozhen, the Gi King.
Right, who's known in the novel for having magical abilities. But even he is a bit hesitant. He tells her, look, if you wanted a few flowers, sure, I could borrow them, but all of them. For that, I need your authority.
So he needs her signature on the dotted line, basically.
Exactly. He takes her handwritten edict and burns it with a talisman. It's like a celestial fax machine. The spirits aren't obeying his magic, they're obeying her edict. He's just the courier.
So the paperwork is filed with heaven. Everyone goes home. And Wu Sanxi runs into another key character we need to talk about. Sui Huai. He's a monk, but monk is a very loose term here.
Very loose. He's the Empress's favorite lover. He was a cosmetics peddler who became a monk just so he could get into the palace freely. He's basically pure ego.
So Sanxi tells Huai about the bet, and they have a good laugh. They go to sleep thinking the Empress is going to look like a fool in the morning.
They're betting on biology, on physics.
But then the sun comes up.
And biology has lost. The garden is transformed. The source says 10,000 hues. Every single plant is in full bloom. It's an explosion of color. Winter has just vanished inside the garden walls.
So Wu Zetian wins the bet. She's proven her power extends to nature itself. But this miracle immediately leads to this amazing, almost comedic scene. The monk, Sui Huai, hears about the flowers and rushes over.
He's strutting in, right? He's thinking, I'm the Empress's favorite, this is my stage. He expects to own the place.
But he runs into a very different kind of power. He runs into Su Liangzi.
Su Liangzi is the head of the court of imperial entertainments, and he is the total opposite of the monk. He's a career bureaucrat, a stickler for the rules, and he's there on official business inspecting the banquet setup.
So you have the arrogant lover versus the grumpy official, and Su Liangzi sees Huai and just yells, what bald donkey dares to come here?
Which we should clarify, bald donkey is a pretty standard, if very rude, insult for a monk in these kinds of texts. It's that old tension between Confucian officials and Buddhist clergy.
Why, you can't believe it. He tries to pull rank like, don't you know who I am?
And this is the core of the conflict. Huaiyi's power comes from his personal connection to the empress. Su Liangzi's power comes from his office. And Su Liangzi basically says, what exam did you pass? What rank do you hold? You're nobody here.
And then he threatens to slap him with his court tablet.
The who?
Yeah.
That long ivory tablet officials held, it's the literal symbol of his office. It's his badge.
And Wei just glares at him.
Yeah.
So Su Liangzi actually does it. He smacks the Empress's lover right across the face with it. Bam!
It's a shocking moment. Huaiyi is totally humiliated. He literally flees to the Empress to tattle on him.
He gets to her, falls on his knees crying, Su Liangzi, beat me up! And you'd expect her to be furious, right? This guy just assaulted her favorite person.
But this is where we see her genius as a ruler in the novel. She asks a very specific, very technical question. She asks,
where did he hit you?
Exactly. And Huaiyi says, in the Vermilion Flower Hall, where the banquet was being set up.
And that's the fatal error.
It is. The Empress immediately switches from concerned lover to head of state. She says the Vermilion Flower Hall is a place for official business. Xi Liangzi had every right to be there. Huaiyi did not.
She tells him, from now on, officials use the South Gate. You use the North Gate.
Which is such a crucial line. It's a geographical metaphor. In the palace, the South is the front, the public sphere, the state. The North is the back, the private quarters, the household.
She's saying, stay in your lane. You are a domestic accessory. Do not cross into statecraft.
Precisely. She protects her official against her lover. She might break the laws of nature, but she will not break the laws of administrative protocol. She comforts him privately later, but in public, she backs her minister.
So the monk is put in his place, the banquet begins, the garden is incredible, and of course, everyone is just fawning over the Empress.
Oh, absolutely. Wu Sanxi and his friends are praising her to the skies, but there are a few honest voices, specifically Direnji.
Judge D. He's always the voice of reason.
He sees the flowers and he just sighs. He says it's a sign of her immense power, but he warns that winter acting like spring is unnatural. He's acknowledging the miracle, but he's also questioning the morality of it.
And then someone notices something. In this ocean of color, there's one tree that refused the order, the hibiscus.
The Manchu, it's just standing there bare and withered. It completely ignored the edict.
How awkward. You command all of nature and one tree just says, nope.
And the officials, the honest ones, they seize on this. They praise the hibiscus. They call it a righteous figure for refusing to flatter power. It's loyal to the season, not the emperor.
But the Empress, she doesn't see it as integrity.
No, she sees insubordination. She orders the tree to be dug up, thrown out of the garden, and used to make fences. She bans it forever. The message is clear. Integrity that defies her will is not welcome here.
So we have the flowers, the slaps, the banished tree. The feast ends. And now we get to the part of the story that feels like a total soap opera twist, but it has huge political stakes.
This is the Northgate drama kicking in. The Empress takes Huaiyi back to the palace. Wu Sanxi is left alone in the garden, and he spots Shang Wenwaner.
The Empress's brilliant secretary. And the text says she's leaning against a railing looking really sad.
Wu Sanxi, who's still buzzing from the wine, he assumes she's sad about him. He asks her, "Are you thinking of me?"
And she just laughs and says, no, someone else. Sanxi forces the issue, and what she reveals is it's completely out of left field.
She says she's not thinking of a lover for herself. She's relaying the thoughts of Empress Wei. And we need to explain who that is. Empress Wei is the wife of the deposed Emperor Zongzong, Wu Ziqian's own son.
Right. But when she kicked off the throne and sent into exile, they're political prisoners, basically.
Exactly. But Wanner says that back when Empress Wei was still at court, Wanner used to tell her stories about how handsome and charming Wu Sanxi was. And apparently, Empress Wei developed a huge, long-distance crush on him.
Wait, really? She's in exile, terrified for her life, and she's daydreaming about Wu Sanxi.
According to Wanner, yes. She supposedly sighed and said, no wonder the Empress loves him, wishing she could be with him.
So Wanner drops this little gossip bomb, and then she proposes a scheme. She tells Sanxi, look, if you help get them recalled from exile, you could have an affair with Empress Wei.
And here's the kicker. Wu Sanxi agrees instantly. He decides right there to petition the Empress to bring the exiled emperor back.
Let's just unpack that. He's not doing this for the good of the state. He's not doing it out of a sense of justice. He is initiating a massive political shift. purely so he can hook up with the guy's wife.
That's exactly what the source tells us. The return of the Luoling king is a major historical event that eventually leads to the restoration of the Tang dynasty. And this novel says it was all sparked by a whispered conversation about a crush.
It's incredible. Empress bending the laws of physics, simple human lust bending the course of history.
And it connects perfectly to the poem that opens this chapter. The text starts by reflecting on how people die for righteousness versus how many die for passion.
And it says dying for righteousness is rare.
Extremely rare. The hibiscus tree represents that. It stood firm and was destroyed. But everyone else, Wu Sanxi, Wan'er, Huai, they're all driven by passion, desire, feeling. And the novel suggests that this messy human stuff is what really turns the gears of the world.
Okay, let's shift scenes. Imagine, just for a second, you're working in a truly toxic office. Maybe your boss is a micromanager, or HR is, completely corrupt.
Or that one coworker who's constantly stealing your ideas.
Exactly. Now take that frustration, that feeling of being trapped, and dial it up to about, 11,000.
We're talking about a scenario where a bad performance review doesn't mean you miss out on a bonus. It means you get tortured.
Yeah. How broken does a workplace culture, or in this case, a whole government, have to be for your only available strategy to be slicing your own stomach open in a courtroom?
It is a gruesome image to start with, but you're absolutely right. It perfectly sets the stage for the era we're looking at today. It's extreme, it's bloody, and it's also surprisingly bureaucratic.
It really is. We are right in the thick of the reign of Empress Wu Zetian.
A fascinating and, frankly, terrifying time. We're seeing the rise of what history in the novel calls the cruel officials. This is a period of intense paranoia, of secret police, and as we'll see, a moment where literature, poetry, manifestos becomes just as dangerous as a sword.
That's what I love about this story. It's not just knights hacking at each other. This is psychological warfare. How a really petty grudge at a dinner party spiraled into a horrific act of self-sacrifice.
And how that physical violence then triggered one of the most famous pieces of, well, hate mail, a rebellion manifesto in all of Chinese history.
It's a perfect case study in escalation.
It is. And the cast of characters here is really distinct. On one side, you have the cruel officials, faction men like Su Manli, Zhu Jing, and Lai Yunshin. These are the guys doing the Empress's dirty work.
The enforcers. The guys who figured out that in a reign of terror, the accuser holds all the power.
They're the bad guys. And then you have the accused, the loyalists, just trying to survive. We've got Su Liangzi, the famous detective Di Renji.
Who a lot of you might recognize from the movies and TV shows.
Right. And the man of the hour, An Jingkang. And then finally, watching all this from afar, you have the rebels, specifically the Duke of Yang, Zhu Jinye, and the legendary poet Luo Binwang.
So let's get right into it. The catalyst for all this madness wasn't some grand geopolitical strategy. It wasn't a border dispute or a famine. It was a slap. Literally a slap in the face.
It's always the small things in these court dramas, isn't it? The source describes a scene at Changhua Hall. The cruel officials are feasting, but the mood is just off. They feel disrespected.
They feel like the righteous officials, guys like Di Renji and Su Liangzi, are looking down on them. And to be fair, they probably were.
Oh, absolutely. The text says they felt these men were arrogant. But the real grudge, the real heat, isn't even from the officials themselves. It's from a guy named Huai.
Okay, so Huai is a really polarizing figure. He's a monk, but he's also the Empress's favorite. And, when the sources say favorite,
They usually mean he was her lover. He had a lot of sway at court. And he is holding on to this serious grudge against an official named Su Liangzi. Su Liangzi had actually slapped him.
can you imagine slapping the Empress's lover? That's not just a career-ending move.
It's a life-ending one, so Huai is just fuming. But here's what's so interesting about the court culture. He goes to Zhu Xing, one of those cruel officials, and he bribes him.
So that's the mechanism of the terror. It's not just top-down oppression from the Empress. It's become a marketplace for revenge. You pay the secret police, and they'll handle your enemies for you.
Precisely. The bribe is just the mechanism. The accusation is the weapon. And they decide to frame Su Liangzi, Di Renji, and An Jingkang for treason. But even in a kangaroo court like this, you need evidence.
Or at least something that looks like evidence. You couldn't just walk into the Empress's throne room with nothing. She was way too shrewd for that.
And this is where it gets so creative in this really twisted way. They don't plant a weapon. They don't forge a letter.
They plant poetry.
It's Lai Yunshin's idea. He plants a fan in a suggestion box, the famous bronze box that was meant for anonymous tips to the Empress. And on this fan, there are 2 poems.
And the claim is that Su Yangzi wrote these poems to mock Empress Wu. I read through them, and honestly, if you're not looking for trouble, they just seem like they're about gardening.
That's the subtlety and the danger of Chinese poetry. It's never just about the flowers. And in this political climate, metaphor is a minefield.
Okay, so let's break them down so everyone understands the trap. The first poem basically says something like, flowers bloom in spring, how many bloom in winter? Only the plum blossom. If you want others to bloom, it's unlikely.
Seems innocent enough, but you have to remember the context. Empress Wu was known for her dominance, even over nature. There's a famous legend where she ordered all the flowers in the Imperial garden to bloom in winter, and they did, out of fear.
So saying it's unlikely is a subtle dig. It's saying she can't actually control reality.
Exactly. But the second poem is where they really tighten the screws. It talks about an imperial order coming to the gardens to force the flowers to bloom, and it says the plants just follow orders to please the ruler.
So it's painting her court as a bunch of mindless sycophants.
Right. But then comes the punchline. The poem singles out one flower, the hibiscus.
It says the hibiscus is different. It refuses to follow the others. It stays leisurely behind the fence, resisting.
And that is the smoking gun. By attributing this poem to Su Liangzi, they're saying he is the hibiscus. He's the one refusing to bloom for the empress. He's calling her rule unnatural.
It's such a specific cultural burn. The hibiscus was often associated with scholars who refused to serve a corrupt government.
Exactly. So in a paranoia-fueled court, that's not just criticism, that's treason. You're declaring yourself morally superior to the monarch.
And the empress takes the bait. Completely. She sees the poems, and she is furious.
She does spare Direnji at first, because she knows he's loyal, which shows she isn't totally blind, but she throws the book at Su Liangzi. She orders Su Yuanli to interrogate him, and we need to be clear here when we say interrogate in this context.
We mean torture. We are not talking about a stark room with bad coffee. We mean the rack, the whip, all of it.
The source says Su Yuanli knows no limits. It's brutal. He is trying to force a confession, and Su Liangzi is just screaming, swearing by the spirits of heaven and earth that he's innocent.
He even says, if I have a traitorous heart, let my entire clan be exterminated. Which is a huge oath. You don't say that lightly.
But words are cheap in this court. Oaths don't matter to a guy like Su Yuanli. He assumes everyone's lying because he lies all the time. So, seeing they're getting nowhere, they turn to Anjing Kang. They're about to torture him next.
And this is the moment, the climax of the scene. And Jin Kang sees that talking isn't working. Oaths aren't working. The whole logic of language is just broken down.
So he speaks up. He says something like, if the ruler wants the subject to die, I'll die. But if you want to torture me to frame my lord, I will not do it.
I will not do it. It's defiance, but it's framed as loyalty. And then, to prove his heart is true, since they clearly don't believe his words, he does something drastic.
It's a massive escalation. He says, since you don't believe my words, allow me to slice open my heart to prove Su Liangzi is not rebelling.
And he does it. He grabs a sword and just slices his own chest and stomach open. The source is incredibly graphic. It says his 5 viscera, his internal organs, spilled out onto the court floor.
It is horrifying, but you have to stop and ask, why? Why that extreme? Is it just madness?
That's what I was thinking. It seems insane. You're killing yourself to prove you shouldn't be killed.
Well, it's this concept of extreme loyalty in a totally broken system. Think about it. The judicial process is a sham. Language has lost its meaning. The only thing left that can't be faked is the physical destruction of the self.
Wow, that's heavy. He had to externalize his inner truth, literally. He had to show them his heart because they wouldn't listen to it.
Exactly. It's the ultimate proof. You can fake a confession, you can fake a poem, but you can't fake your own guts spilling out on the floor. It forces everyone to acknowledge the reality of the situation.
And it worked, didn't it?
It did. It stopped the machine. The other officials rush in, totally shocked. They report it to the Empress, and even Wu Zetian is stunned.
She orders the torture to stop immediately. She even sends her best doctors to save him. It's like this one act of undeniable violence broke through all the paranoia.
It bought them a reprieve, but the ripple effects, they didn't stop in that courtroom. News of this horror show starts to travel.
Right, it spreads far and near, and eventually it reaches the city of Yangzhou. And this is where we shift gears from the suffocating court to the rebels.
We meet the Duke of Yang, Xu Jingyi, and his brother. They're hearing these reports from the capital, and they are just horrified.
Xu Jingyi is looking at the state of the Tang Empire, thinking about the heroes who built the dynasty. And now, in his eyes, it's all being ruined.
And his perspective is very traditional for the time. He blames a woman, Wu Zetian, for being on the throne. He calls her officials foxes and rats.
He's basically asking, why is no one doing anything? Why are all the court officials just acting like puppets?
And his brother points out the obvious. Everyone's scared. They're all trying to protect themselves. But he agrees, if someone were to raise a righteous flag, people would follow.
And then enter the heavy hitters. Two exiled friends show up, Tang Ziki and the famous poet Luo Binwang.
These guys are the disaffected intellectuals. They've been beaten down by the system. And when they walk in, Xu Jingyi is ready to go.
He says, if you help me, I'll take charge. We'll rally the troops and march. But he knows he needs more than just swords. He needs a narrative.
That's crucial. You can't just start a civil war, otherwise you're just a bandit. You need legitimacy. You have to explain why you're fighting. And that's where Luo Binwang steps in. He says, if you're willing to start this, I will write a manifesto to help you.
This brings us to the power of the pen. The scene in the source is so cinematic. They're drinking wine, all fired up. Luo Binwang just stands up, rolls up his sleeves, and starts writing.
And this isn't just a memo. This is the call to arms to chastise Wu Zetian. It is a real historical document, and it is a masterpiece of vitriol. It's high art hate mail.
Let's walk through some of the insults, because he does not hold back at all.
First, he attacks her background. He calls her lowly and says she sullied the Spring Palace.
Which is a polite, poetic way of saying she slept her way into power. She was a concubine to both an emperor and his son. That was a huge Confucian taboo.
A massive taboo. So he's establishing from day one that she's morally bankrupt. Then he goes after her character. He says she has the heart of a viper and the nature of a jackal.
Dehumanizing her. It's classic propaganda.
But then he lists specific crimes. This is the legal argument. He accuses her of killing her sister, butchering her brothers, murdering her own son, and poisoning her mother.
Man and God share the same hatred for her. Heaven and earth cannot tolerate her. I mean, tell us how you really feel, Luo Binwang.
It's designed to make her look like a monster, and then comes the political argument. She is peeking at the Imperial artifacts. Basically, she's stealing the throne.
There's this one detail about the writing process that really struck me. Xu Jingyi is standing there, watching him write. And as he's watching, he starts crying.
It's a very emotional scene. Luo Binwang writes this one line asking, "The soil on the emperor's grave is not yet dry. Who owns the world today?"
That line hits hard. The soil on the emperor's grave is not yet dry. It's appealing to their grease, their loyalty to the old dynasty that's slipping away.
It's a guilt trip for every official in the empire. He's saying, you promised to serve the Tang, and now you're letting this happen. Where is your honor?
And the reaction in the room just proves the power of the words. When Xu Jingyi reads that part, the source says he hits the table in great grief.
And Luo Binwang, the writer, throws his pen down and declares, anyone who reads this and isn't moved is a beast.
Talk about confidence in your own work.
But he was right. The entire room is in tears. But they're not tears of defeat, they're tears of resolve. They're crying because they feel justified.
Okay, let's shift scenes.
Okay, so imagine for a second you're an inventor, a genius even, but you're not making something helpful. You're not inventing the printing press.
No, you're an architect of pain.
Exactly. You've designed this method of interrogation that is so horrific, so flawless, that no one has ever been able to withstand it. Everyone confesses.
It's a system built on pure, absolute fear.
Right. And now picture this. You're at a dinner party. You're bragging about it. Maybe you've had some wine. You feel completely untouchable. And the person you're having dinner with just looks at you and says, that's a fantastic idea. In fact, I have an accusation right here against you. Please enter the vat.
It is, without a doubt, the greatest unreversed card in Chinese history.
It really is. We've got torture devices. We've got secret codes hidden in, of all things, the name of a bird. And we have a bedroom affair that might just change the entire course of the dynasty.
It reads like a thriller. And this gives us three very different strategies for survival. We're going to look at three countermoves.
Okay, so what are they?
First, how you stop a reign of terror from the inside. Second, how you handle a rebellion with style. And third, how a secret deal made in a bedroom can determine your entire political future.
And that third one gets messy, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We have to start with the terror. Because the atmosphere in the capital at this point is, it's grim.
It's suffocating. You have to understand, Empress Wu is, maybe rightly, paranoid about traitors. So she's empowered these officials, they're called the cruel officials, to root out dissent. men like Zhu Xing.
But they're not really finding traitors, are they? They're manufacturing them.
They're incentivized to get confessions. The text gives this chilling statistic from Chancellor Direnji, the famous detective figure.
Right, usually he's the hero.
But even he is overwhelmed. There are over 850 people in prison, and the text says they are all clinging to false confessions just to make the torture stop.
They'd rather die as traitors than be interrogated one more day. That's a system that's completely broken.
It's a meat grinder. And Zhu Xing is the one running it. But eventually, even the Empress starts to think this has gone too far. So she tells another official, Yan Xishan, to investigate Zhu Xing himself.
Now, if it were me, I'd bring an army to arrest the head of the secret police.
But Yan Xishan is much smarter than that. He knows Zhu Xing would fight back, destroy evidence, so he invites him to dinner.
Just a casual meal between colleagues.
Exactly. It's a psychological trap. He gets Zhu Xing comfortable, and then he sighs and says something like, Zhu, these prisoners lately are so stubborn, they just won't confess. You're the master. What's your secret?
He's playing to his ego.
Totally. And Zhu Xing, he just laps it up. He leans in like he's sharing a trade secret. He says, oh, it's simple. You get a big vat, a huge urn, see, and you put it over a charcoal fire.
Oh, I see where this is going.
He continues. You heat it up, and then you tell the prisoner, please get inside.
It's so simple and so horrible. A human oven?
And he's proud of it. But the second he says it, the trap is sprung. Yan Xishan doesn't flinch. He just calmly turns to his staff and says, bring in a vat and light a fire.
You can just imagine the blood draining from Zhu Xing's face.
And then Yan Xishan stands up, looks him in the eye, and says the line that became an idiom. I have an accusation against you. Please enter the vat.
King Jinru Wei.
That's the one. And what's brilliant is that Zhu Xing knows the machine. He knows there's no escape. He doesn't fight. He doesn't argue.
He just confesses on the spot.
Instantly. He knows what's waiting for him. That one move basically breaks the back of the terror. The other cruel officials, like Lai Yunshin, are later publicly executed. The text says the people were so enraged they thought to eat their flesh.
Wow. That's visceral. It tells you how much pressure they were under.
It was a release. There's this beautiful line in the text after it's all over. It says, sleepers' backs finally touched the mat.
Meaning people could finally relax. They could sleep without fear for the first time in years.
Yes, the internal threat is gone. But this is Empress Wu's court. The second one problem is solved, another pops up.
The rebellion. We shift from a domestic police story to a full-blown military crisis. A rebellion led by a man named Zhu Jingji.
And this rebellion isn't just fought with armies. It's a war propaganda. One of the rebels is a very famous poet, Luo Binwang. He writes this manifesto that just destroys Empress Wu, viciously attacks her character, her legitimacy, everything.
So her nephew, Wu Sanxi, brings her this document. He must be terrified. He's showing the Empress this treasonous piece of writing.
You'd think she'd fly into a rage. Find this man and execute him.
That's the standard playbook.
But she reads it, and she sighs. And she asks, who wrote this? When they tell her, she says, to have such talent, yet let him fall into obscurity, this is the fault of my prime ministers.
That is just an incredible reaction. She's critiquing her own government's HR policy while someone is trying to overthrow her.
It shows you how her mind works.
Hmm.
She respects talent above all else. Even in her enemies, she recognizes the skill, even if the message is treason. It's a real power move.
But she still has to crush the rebellion. Which brings us to the code, the part that feels like it's from a spy movie.
My favorite part. So they know there's a traitor in the capital, Pei Yan, working with the rebels. They intercept a letter from him.
And it says,
It just says 2 words, Blue Goose.
Blue Goose. What does that even mean?
Nobody knows. Her ministers are all stumped. But the Empress looks at the 2 Chinese characters, King Yi, and she gets it instantly.
Okay, you have to walk us through this. How do you get from a bird to a battle plan?
It's all about deconstructing the characters. So the first one, King, means blue or green. In the poetry of the time, green spring was a common term for the 12th month of the year.
So blue is actually a date. It means December. That's the when.
Exactly. Now, for the who and what, that's in the goose. The character for goose is E. And if you look at how it's written, you can see other characters inside of it, stacked on top of each other.
Like a visual puzzle.
Precisely. The character E contains the components for woe, which means I, and Z, which means self, and another particle U, which means will support.
Wait, hold on. So the word for goose literally has the phrase, I myself will support. hidden in the brushstrokes.
That's it. So when she saw Blue Goose, she wasn't seeing a bird. She was reading, "In the 12th month, I myself will support you from within."
That is absolutely brilliant. And because she cracks the code?
She knows their whole plan.
Yeah.
She executes the traitor, Pei-Yun, and sends her army to crush the rebellion before they can coordinate their attack. She doesn't just outfight them, she outthinks them.
So the secret police are gone, the rebellion is crushed, but there's still one loose end for her, isn't there? A personal one.
Her son. The former emperor she deposed, Luling Wang, he's living in exile.
And if you're her, you have to be wondering, was he involved in this? The rebels were claiming to fight for him after all.
She needs to know if he has two hearts, as the text says. But who can she trust to find out?
This is where the nephew, Wu Sanxi, comes back in. He volunteers to go check on his cousin.
He does. But just before he leaves, there's this really interesting little scene with Shangguan Warner.
Who is a major player. She's the Empress's personal secretary, but she's really more like her chief of staff. She controls all the information.
And the text makes it very clear that she and Wu Sanxi are
close. Strategically close.
right. As he's leaving, she pulls him aside and says, "Let's walk out the west gate. It's quieter." And during this little rendezvous, she gives him gifts, but not for him.
They're for the exiled Empress Wei, Luling Wang's wife.
Yes. And you have to ask yourself, why is the current Empress's top aide sending secret gifts to the exiled Empress?
She's hedging her bets.
She is playing the long game. She knows Empress Wu won't live forever. If and when Luling Wang is restored to the throne, Shangguan Wanner needs to have an ally in the new Empress. She's securing her future.
Everyone in this story is a chess player. So Wu Sanxi takes the gifts and goes to Fengzhou, the town where his cousin is exiled.
But he doesn't just announce himself. He goes in disguise first. He checks into an inn, talks to the innkeeper. He asks, "So what's the deal with this Luling Wang guy?"
And what does he find out?
The report couldn't be better. The innkeeper says he's a model exile, totally quiet, visits the local monastery, wouldn't harm a fly. The locals love him.
He sounds completely harmless, which is exactly what Empress Wu wants to hear.
Right. So mission accomplished, basically. But Wu Sanxi still goes to the house to see for himself, and that's where he meets Empress Wei.
The text makes a point of describing how beautiful she is.
Eyes holding autumn water.
Yeah.
It's clear that Wu Sanxi is impressed. But first he has to deal with the husband, and Luling Wang is a wreck.
He's just terrified, isn't he? When he hears about the rebellion, he starts shouting that the rebels should be shattered into 10,000 pieces.
He's performing his loyalty because he thinks Wu Sanxi might be there to execute him. He's just trying to survive the conversation. He gets so stressed that at dinner that night, he just drinks himself into a stupor.
He passes out cold, and the servants carry him off to bed.
Which leaves Wu Sanxi alone in the room with the very beautiful and very sober Empress Wei.
And this is where the deal goes down. It's not a romance, it's a transaction.
It is cold as ice.
Yeah.
He lays out his offer. He says, "Look, I can go back to the capital. I have the Empress's ear. I can convince her to bring you back from this dump." To seal the deal, she gives him tokens. A piece of her jewelry, a crane crest for him as a pledge, and a jade ring to take back to Shangguan Wanner.
She completes the circle. The alliance is now between the nephew, the secretary, and the future empress.
It's an incredible move. Wu Sanxi then goes back to the capital and reports to Empress Wu.
Your son is completely loyal, nothing to worry about.
Leaving out the rather important detail about what he was doing with her son's wife,
Yeah.
that part he keeps for himself. It's his leverage.